I'm pleased to introduce to you Ben Tyler from Hypergate. He will be presenting today. Today's webinar is about the changing times with the Hypergate. This session lasts about 30 minutes and the microphones will be set to mute during the presentations, but you can of course ask questions right after the presentations. And now I'd like to hand over to Ben. Please go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Nadine, and thanks to Nomasis for arranging this. So yes, I'm Ben Tyler. I'm from Hypergate. I am one of the account managers here at Hypergate, and today, we'll be looking at the changing times in the enterprise mobility space and how Hypergate can help you in those changing times. We'll be looking at the transition to Android Enterprise for any business. We're looking at the challenges that companies face, talking about becoming truly mobile and what that means from a Hypergate perspective, and then the transition to cloud, things like Intune and using Office 365. So okay, so let's move on. So so as an agenda for today, so we're looking at rolling out Android Enterprise in your business, becoming truly mobile, and then moving to the cloud, and focused on how Hypergate can help you with that process. So just a quick summary about Hypergate if you weren't too sure. So Hypergate is a product of Papers AG. Papers was established in 2010 and has its head office in Zug. The company has developed or dedicated the last 10 years to developing secure mobile first software, and that's where we're able to develop the two products that we have today, which is Hypergate Authenticator and Hypergate Files. This presentation will be looking exclusively at Hypergate Authenticator, but if you'd like a separate session to look at Hypergate Files as well, that's absolutely fine. So, okay, so let's start with what we hear from our current customers today, people that reach out and come to Hypergate, and their general business challenges are always pretty much the same thing that we hear. It's a balance between on the mobile device anyway. It's a balance between giving the best user experience, making the mobile device as useful for the user and the business as possible, but also then balancing that with the security and manageability of that device. Because obviously the more business information you have on that device, the more you need to be security conscious. And as they do things like a bring your own device strategy, and they start to roll out things like Android Enterprise, this is where both the user and the business is demanding that the mobile device is able to deliver its functionality, using any browser. They don't want to be tied down to having to use one particular browser. They want to be able to use any mobile device, whether it be Android or Apple iOS, any type of Android or iOS device within that. They want to have the flexibility to look at different MDMs or EMM solutions. They don't want to have to necessarily be tied down to just using one. And obviously, they want to be able to use any business application they have on those devices. So when you're looking at a solution like Hypergate that is ultimately a enterprise mobility application, it has to meet all of these needs, and this is where Hypergate can really help with this strategy in general. So so this is where we come to Hypergate Authenticator, available on Android and also available on iOS as well, and it works with any Android enterprise ready device. So in a short summary, what is Hypergate Authenticator? So it is simply an application that is installed on the mobile device, and we'll come on to that in a bit more detail. Its design, or the principle of its design, is for any company that is currently delivering some sort of single sign-on on their PCs using their existing infrastructure, and they want to do the same on mobile devices. And that is the aim, the sole aim or initial aim of Hypergate Authenticator. So, okay, so what initial problem does Hypergate Authenticator solve? Well, the biggest problem that our customers face is when they're using their existing security protocols to deliver their version of single sign-on, whether it be username and password based or certificate based authentication. Those security protocols focused on Kerberos, they are no longer supported on Android Enterprise. So what this means is the company wants to roll out Android Enterprise. They see the benefits of doing it, and when they do that, they either uh, can't set up single sign-on, or they can't continue to use the same single sign-on they had on those mobile devices previously in their new Android Enterprise environment, because single sign-on using Kerberos is blocked. It's not supported. So what does Hypergate Authenticator do? Well, it maintains your existing security infrastructure. If you're using, say, Kerberos and you have set up with certificate-based authentication, it will continue to use that same security infrastructure. There's no changes to your infrastructure setup. There's also no changes to how you use your existing IT infrastructure itself. There's no back-end changes, no complicated setups, because it is a device-side application. It's all managed by the device, and it talks and uses your existing infrastructure to do that. This means that the solution is actually set up extremely quickly, and it seamlessly integrates with web and mobile applications. And what it does is it enhances the authentication mechanism on both Android and iOS, and we'll come on to that in a minute. So not to get into too much technical detail, but a good way for people to visualize how Hypergate actually does what it does, and where the actual blockage comes, is by having a look at this quick diagram. So on this diagram, it shows the workflow of Hypergate from an authentication perspective. So we start on the left-hand side. This is where someone might access an application through Google Chrome, for example, and that application does it requests authentication. So could be going back to an intranet site, for example, and then the process starts, and it's where it comes back, and then Hypergate would pick up the authentication mechanism in step 3, and then step 4, it uses it uses the Mobiline tunnel, for example, that you have, or any VPN connection that your business has, to go back and talk directly to the KDC, staying completely on premise, nothing is exposed. It goes and gets the ticket, whether it's a certificate or just a username ticket. It gets that directly from the Active Directory, and it handles then the authentication through Chrome. And this is where it demonstrates just how we use the existing security infrastructure and how it is all kept on premise. There is no exposure to the cloud. There's no systems or servers needed to do this. It's just talking directly to the KDC to go and get that ticket. And this makes the user experience extremely seamless. So what else can Hypergate Authenticator do? So using that system, we've developed 3 features that we'll talk about today. The first one is the seamless single sign-on. The second feature is the password lifecycle. And then lastly, we've got our smart access security solution, all included and built into a simple software license and a software application. So if I just try and pause this video quickly. So what we've got here is we have a comparison video of what the user would have to go through if their single sign-on solution was stopped working. So as per usual, they would have to select the website they need. They would then be prompted to enter their username and password, and this situation could happen once an hour for every potential service, or it could be happening once a day. But what does it look like with Hypergate? So here we have an extremely seamless and extremely fast process to do exactly the same thing. What you're actually seeing here is This is the very, very first step or very first part of the process when Hypergate is initially going to get that first ticket. If this has already been done, so say 2 hours later, you go to access the same resource, Hypergate is actually so quick that the user won't even see a single thing on the screen. But this is just to give you a like-for-like comparison of obviously the speed and the user experience of really how simple it is to complete a single sign-on process with Hypergate. So, okay, now we come on to becoming truly mobile, one of the main sort of topics for today. So, what do we mean by becoming truly mobile? Well, let me put it this way. Our kind of definition, or how we define that, is remove any need to access to a PC or computer, and this is for any work applications, any work documents, and complete some basic administrative tasks. Essentially, the mobile phone should be replicating anything you do for work, and there isn't anything you should have to go back to a PC for. Nothing at all. So let me ask you a question then. Are there any actions that your users rely on a PC or computer uh, they need access to complete those actions? And quite often people say, "Oh no, no, there's there's nothing really there. They this is why we have enterprise mobility. There's nothing they need to get access for." But then we ask them a simple question, and it's how do they currently reset an expired Active Directory password? Now, it's amazing how many companies turn around and say, "Oh, well, if it's expired, oh, okay, well, they would have to go to a PC or go to a computer, and they would have to type in their old password, and they'd have to reset a new password." And okay, so for people who just sit in front of a PC all day, then obviously that's not too much of a problem, as long as obviously they can remember their previous password. But let's say they've either been on Kurzarbeit or they have been on holiday for a period of time, and you come back and they can't remember their previous password. I'm sure we've all been there. But you're saying you want everyone to be highly mobile and be flexible in the way they work, but they're ultimately still tied to having a computer that's connected to their network to do something as basic as change or refresh an expired password. That's what we call becoming truly mobile, because with Hypergate, you can now get around this problem on an Android or an iOS device very easily. And now I should demonstrate what that looks like. So the first part of this video, this is where a user would go to they would go and they want to change their password. And so what's important to notice here is, and it's a great user experience part here. They don't have to use or have to remember their previous password. What you can do on Android and iOS is you can use the biometric authentication mechanisms built into the phone to bypass the need to type in your old password. And so this would mean that no one can obviously can forget it, and it makes it a very, very easy and straightforward way of resetting an expired password. And so what they would do is they then go in and they have a pop-up that comes in saying, obviously, please enter the new password that you want. So this time round, the user enters a nice long complicated password that has a good number of digits, and the system is saying that is a secured password. It meets their security requirements. So, but what happens if the user does that again, but they enter a password that is extremely weak? And in this example, the user just enters two digits because they can't be bothered to type in anything longer. Now, apologies if you can't quite see this, but what's important here is this is exactly the same as what you would have if uh, your user was doing it on the computer. There is no change because Hypergate is talking directly to the Active Directory. Nothing needs to be programmed here in Hypergate. Whatever you have on a PC will be in Hypergate, because it's an Active Directory client on the mobile device. This is great from an administrative perspective because it means that you don't need to worry about programming Hypergate if you make any changes to any of the text or the security requirements for the length of password that the user has. And it's a very simple process and very easy for you to manage. And it means that the user gets the relative prompts and the user experience is just like that on a PC, nothing different. And what you can also have is if the password has expired or is going to expire, you can have notifications 7 days or 5 days in advance warning the user that their password needs to be changed, and they can then click on that and they can actually go straight into changing their password themselves, so they don't actually get to the point it's expired. If it has expired, they have a pop-up that comes up on the screen and they can automatically change their password from there. So now then the user would go in and enter a more complicated password that meets the company's requirements. Why is this important? It might seem trivial, or it might seem like something the business hasn't thought about before, but we're working with a large North American bank. They gave us a great example. They said, yeah, our pain point is that we have 60,000 odd users, and every month we get about 15,000 password related tickets. It sounds like a lot, but actually, if you do the maths, that's about a 20% of the workforce, which means that each person is raising about just over one ticket a year that's password related. And they figured out that they have a flat fee for help desk tickets. And so their current cost of resetting just password related help desk tickets to the business is $750,000 a year. So if you actually start to think about it and have a conversation either with the help desk, and you sort of look at the number of tickets that are raised for just, I've forgotten my password, I need to change it, or my password's expired and I need to enter my old one and I can't do it, let alone the amount of time that's wasted for the employee who can't work during this situation. So this is what we're really focusing on when we say become truly mobile. So then we come on to the next topic, and this comes up a lot. And this slide is fairly basic, but I think it brings across the point quite well. So what we often see is many of our customers are either 100% on premise or in a private data center. So their Active Directory will be on premise. They will have a number of legacy applications that will be on premise. And so all of the authentication when you're outside of the company office, that has to go back on premise. So that's where Hypergate is perfectly fine. But then a lot of our customers say, yeah, but we're using some cloud applications. When we're moving more and more to using cloud resources, we're not quite going to use full Azure AD just yet, but that's definitely on the cards. So how can Hypergate help? Well, on the left-hand side, you kind of have that setup where you might have an identity provider like a ping federate that sits on premise, and then you have your key distribution center that is still on premise. So on the left-hand side, it demonstrates that the information will go from the Hypergate mobile device, it might go up to a cloud resource, and then it will come back through using the VPN to that on-premise authentication. Others say, well, yeah, but we use a cloud-based IDP and we're definitely moving much more to the cloud, but we're still keeping essentially the authentication on premise, or we have some key applications that we can't move into the cloud, so we still need to use Kerberos for that part of the authentication. That's absolutely perfect. Hypergate can do both Kerberos, but also on top of that, SAML cloud-based authentication as well. As long as you have the basis of Kerberos, we can work perfectly in a hybrid setup. And this means as you transition, or if you are already transitioning, we can fill that hole that you currently have, and we can move with you as you transition into full cloud. So after this, then, what are the four key areas of parts of the Hypergate solution that really brings value? And without a doubt, our customers tell us repeatedly, it's that improvement in user experience. What's the alternative? To have the user entering their password repeatedly throughout the day because they've lost single sign-on. That's, for a lot of our customers, that is an absolute showstopper. So what does that actually mean to a business? Well, what it means is that you're able to reduce cost, and you're looking at cost in terms of the downtime of people wasting time typing in their passwords. And when you run some figures, that becomes extremely costly. You're also looking to reduce the impact of security breaches, because if someone has to enter their password repeatedly throughout the day, they're certainly going to enter either the same password or they're going to enter something that's very weak. And also, then, as we said earlier, we're looking to reduce the IT support costs by hopefully reducing some of those unnecessary help desk tickets by allowing the user to change their password on the mobile device. We do all of that with uncompromised security. We do certificate-based authentication. We use the highly secure protocol called Kerberos, and then we're leveraging your existing highly secure VPN service. So everything is not, it's all kept on premise and not exposed. And we offer that flexibility that we touched on earlier, where it can work on any device, which is perfect for something like a bring your own device setup. And it can work with any EMM or MDM and many applications straight out the box. So there's nothing that will tie you down. So now we come on to our latest feature, and I'll just cover this quickly, and we can do this in more detail on a separate session if you wish. But this is a feature that we've been developing and is now available on Android and is soon to be available on iOS. So what is Hypergate Smart Access? Well, this is our don't assume, validate service. So what you can do is you can easily customize the solution to your specific needs. You can put local evaluation of rules to remove any privacy concerns. You can make use of local context data, and you can emulate multi-factor authentication, for example, with biometrics. And you can use this on both the Hypergate Authenticator and Hypergate Files solution. So there is a short video here, but because of the time and because of this presentation, I won't show you the whole video, but if you want, I can send you the link to this video so you can watch it yourself. It essentially shows you the full presentation of Smart Access, and it shows you how to actually use our emulator to test those rules. So how could Smart Access actually help? How could this rule engine, this context-based rule engine, actually help? So I'll give you an example. We're actually working with a Swiss-based finance company that said before Corona that a lot of their customer relationship managers travel out to the US a lot. And when they're in the customs line at the airport, the customs officers actually have the right to gain access to any corporate information that isn't on a corporate laptop, as long as you can demonstrate that you can get access. Now, if you can't get access, if you're blocked, then that's absolutely fine. So, for example, with Smart Access, how would that help? You would place a geofence that would set a rule saying anyone that is in the US take an action. Now, that action could be notify the help desk so they can help that user, but they've initially blocked the authentication because the system knows that they are in the US. Another example, not on the company network. How would the company feel if they knew that an important member of the team with sensitive corporate data went to their local coffee shop on an open network and was accessing sensitive internal corporate data? So with Hypergate Authenticator, you can put a rule around that, a control. What action you want to take is up to you, but you can get the system to identify that they're no longer on a secured corporate network. You can also look at time of day, for example. So if you have shift workers that go in, there is no reason why that worker is accessing this information outside of their shift. You could also then combine that with geofencing as well, whereas you could say, why if they accessing at a period of time, where are they located on that device? Are they outside of the factory that they work in, for example? So you can build a lot of these tailored rules, and there is lots of different rules you can apply, but it's just to put some logic behind the authentication. Like we said, we just don't assume everything is okay, we validate that. So just to give you a quick summary of a case study that we've done for Hypergate Authenticator, we worked with Jefferies Bank In the US, they're a Fortune 500 company. They they do a lot of work on their mobile devices. We were told about 95% of their job can be done on a mobile device, and 85% of those mobile devices are employee owned, but they are managed by the company. So with Hypergate Authenticator, when those employees were bringing on their new devices, and Android Enterprise was pushed out to those devices by the company, they had the problem that we said earlier. They were using certificate-based authentication, and this no longer worked. So they needed a solution because they couldn't have these users all of a sudden going from doing lots of work on the mobile device to being blocked by having to enter password repeatedly. And that's where Hypergate came in. And we can send you the link to the case study shortly. So, okay, so that's all from me. So I'll just wrap up with going back over the key takeaways. So the key to Hypergate is balancing that user experience with security. We make sure that one isn't compromised over the others. It's only an application, and I say this again because so many people are like, okay, so where is it stored? Is it on premise? Is it in the cloud? What service does it use? It's only an application. There's no additional hardware or configurations needed to deploy this type of authentication. You can have a system where you have no more passwords. Work on certificate-based authentication. Try to reduce help desk costs by allowing the users to reset and manage their own passwords from any Android or iOS device. And then finally, don't assume, validate. Use smart access to apply some verification around the authentication process. Take the human error out of it where possible. Okay, perfect. So that brings me to the end. And yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Well, thank you, Ben, for these insights. It was very interesting. I did not receive any questions, and if further questions should come, you can contact us anytime or Ben directly. And I guess that's all from my side, and I wish you all a nice evening.
Perfect. Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks for listening.